This is a massive call, but I think we've stumbled upon one of the biggest scams in the country. And looking at the long list of scams that have plagued us, such as the shock to discover that John Ham isn't actually a piece of ham. It's not bigger than that. Nothing's bigger than when you first realise, John Ham? I thought it was John Ham! But let's give this video a little fun game and give you a clue. One word that describes the type of person we're talking about today. Dodgy. No, it's not the old Chinese grandma in Paddy's markets that you bought a, quote, genuine corn shirt off of. Not a bad guess. Let's get a little more specific here. 2 words. F***ing dodgy. Correct, we're talking about property developers. Well done. The industry that makes snake oil salesmen look respectable, as at least snake oil salesmen's businesses don't revolve around burning you alive. Well, let's just hope that building was filled with witches and... Oh no, they flew away! This is a gobsmacking stat. When you hear it, your mouth will go as wide as size staring at asses. In Australia, 85% of new high-rise apartments are faulty. Those knockoff Tamagotchis you got at the reject shop had a higher chance of working than the most important, expensive purchase you will ever make in your entire life. 85%. That can't be an accident. Well, individually, I'm sure it is. It's pretty safe to say that almost every one of those mistakes was done by some Greek man disparaging. Oh no, the foreman's gonna have my nuts. We ran out of cement. Oh, I know. I'll mix it in with this tzatziki. I don't know what I'm saying there. I guess the gorillas are foreman. On the whole, though, 85%. That number is the direct result of a government whose sole ambition is to make as much money as possible for property developers so that property developers can shout them lunch. Now, having said that, and this is one of the rarest sentences I'll ever say in my life, right up there with last night an anteater came into my room and jammed his nose up my ass in my sleep. Here it is. This all started with labour. Quite a twist, huh? Got your attention? Because now that I have, when they made the reform, it made perfect sense. Yeah, they're perfect, accept it. They introduced something called the Exempt and Complying Development Policy, and it was more exciting than a weekend with Batman. Doesn't it make perfect sense, though? Originally, it was in response to people saying, council is taking 2 years to approve my granny flat. My granny's now dead. I don't even need it now because I don't plan on developing a trap side project. So Labor said, yeah, fair enough. The process shouldn't be, yes, I'd like to build a patio.
2,000 years later.
No. So they allowed you to hire something called a private certifier. It's just some guy that comes in, looks at the outside of your house and says... Before that policy change, private certifiers was a cottage industry. It was like collecting rare bobby pins or dressing up as a clown and killing kids. Niche. But it opened Pandora's box. Because as soon as the Libs got in, what do you think they did? They massively expanded Labor's private certifier policy to, you know, small round-the-house stuff like a sunroom or Opal Tower. Why should council want to be in your ear if you want to build a modest 400 apartments?
12 seconds later.
You know Opal Tower, right? The Leaning Tower of Pisa of the Southern Hemisphere. Everyone was shocked to discover this. Shocked that the certifier they hired had already had a disciplinary strike against his name before he was chosen to check off on Opal. I wasn't shocked. Maybe that's because I've been immunised by how many shocking bombshells New Idea exposes week after week. But if I was a developer, seeing that strike against a certifier's name would be like seeing a restaurant with a Michelin star. Ooh, just one? That's obviously standard practice now. In an industry where time is money, if you had the choice of a qualified, highly skilled government inspector bothering you with notes like, sorry you can't use ice cream as the air conditioning, please redo with actual building material, you could go with that. Or you could go with some schmo you pay like 10 grand who knows he won't be getting any repeat business with you if he holds construction up for even a nanosecond to look at your concreting and say, oh yeah, those cracks I like when you buy jeans with holes in them, it's a style choice, yeah, and cement tastes like tzatziki. That's what the Liberals did. Labor's policy was barred. The Liberals' policy was barred after trying nature's goodness.
We call it nature's goodness.
What's in it?
2,4-desoxypropaneuramine.
Sweet.
What the Libs have done is more or less privatise building inspections. God, they're really running out of shit to privatise, aren't they? It gets even scarier though. This freaked me out. In fact, it's so disturbing I have to put it up on screen because trust me, it'll stop you from making the worst decision of your life. I have now heard from numerous people in this industry. I would think long and hard about buying an apartment built in the last 20 years, but I wouldn't even consider for a second buying anything built in the last 10. That is because the Liberals, servants of developers that they are, have removed any incentive at all to build something that doesn't have the structural integrity of a Nature's Valley granola bar. Why would you? Unless you live in Queensland, there is zero chance of any repercussions for builders or developers because legally, no one's liable. Isn't that insane? Isn't that trying to crawl back inside your mum's womb to have a nap level insane? That means that if your apartment falls in on your head and makes you look like this, no one from developer to real estate agent is responsible. It's egregious enough that people in the property industry don't get sent to The Hague for saying, "Take it to the next level." Let alone that from start to finish they've installed a government that installed a system where the most slimy people there are, property developers. Property developers are incentivized to build shit. New South Wales was supposed to adopt something similar to Queensland laws, passed by a Labor government, but again, because of the control these companies have over the Liberals, do you think they passed anything of substance? Their response to Opal Tower was more or less,
Oh my God, the 59th Street Bridge.
Maybe it just collapsed on its own.
just like with koalas, the trick for the Libs is to seem like they're doing things. They're the government equivalent of music promoters. They gutted 80 of the provisions, arguing, get ready for this. Nah, if we put in more regulations, then developers won't be able to slap together apartments that sink in on themselves. I mean, what do they expect from a sink or swim industry? They were arguing that, no, we're not going to regulate the industry that has become so perverse that they're making nearly every home a hazard, because if we did, it would stop nearly every home from being a hazard. You can see the bind they're in, right? Recently though, they did change their tune. In 2020, they passed the Powers Bill, which created a commissioner's office that could order builders to fix structural problems and stop work. But isn't that incredible that that's a 2020 reform? I'm pretty sure that guy existed in the year 3. It was a fraction of what Labor and the Greens were pushing for, and the Libs only passed this bare bones measure because, can you guess why? The industry wanted it. So in other words, under the Libs, they decide the laws. They get to decide just how ethical they feel like being. And to illustrate that, you ever heard of PE cladding? I'm not sure if it's a subsidiary of PE Nation or not, but this, oh my God, it's used to make walls because it's cheaper than wood. And the reason it's cheaper than wood is because it's petrol. Buildings. Going the way of the steam engine, apparently. Making way for the car. Now an apartment that has maybe 3,000 square metres of PE cladding could contain as much as 3,500 litres of petrol. That's enough to power one whole hour of a Krusty Demons roadshow. This may as well be your wall. Anyway, to highlight the differences in the parties, Bill Shorten, unlike the Libs, really anti-people dying in fires. From bushfires to PE cladding, he's a simp for safety. He said, nah, I don't want this to be a PE nation. If I'm elected, I'm going to ban apartments from being made out of petrol bowsers. While the Liberals essentially said, no, we don't need to ban it because the builders that are lining high-rises with fucking petrol told us that they'd line it with petrol responsibly from now on. It's astonishing, isn't it? It really is the exact reverse of the how many frogs are there in the ecosystem to indicate how healthy it is. You can tell how crooked a town is by how many ads you see of two models romantically staring into each other's eyes with the slogan, new exciting development. The only thing fun anymore about making these videos is figuring out just how anti-population the Liberals are. And this week, I learned that their stated policy is, I don't care if you die in a chemical fire, as long as the companies making these giant matchboxes give me donations so I can get re-elected to approve even more people dying in chemical fires. I can't unsee this now. It's like that famous scene with the glasses in They Live. Everywhere I look, Meriton. I really am starting to notice that every major issue Australia's facing, from housing affordability, huge migration rates, rapid environmental destruction, it all comes back to the Property Council, which is why, again, if you work in the industry, development, building, real estate, contact me. And if you don't, get a brush shirt and my stand-up show available at friendlyjordies.com. They might develop property, but you can develop your funny bone today. Like and subscribe.
please share and comment below. Command.